We ended up going to like Ruru's, which was like a Mexican taco joint. They put us in the back. We're all in like our travel suits. We're all mad. We're all tired. And we just end up having probably too many margaritas and queso dip. I think I had like 50 pounds of queso dip that night, as I thought it was going to like make me feel better. I'll never forget that dinner when we got back, because there was a lot of sad dudes in that taco joint.
Hey, and welcome to our brand new show, No Headsets. He is two-time NFL Head Coach of the Year, Ron Rivera, also a Super Bowl champion and current GM of the Cal Bears. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to that, so burying the lead. But anyway, I'm Tiffany Blackmon. You might have seen me roaming the sidelines for NFL and college football on CBS as well as ESPN. Our relationship started back at NFL Network, but the show's called No Headsets. Yep. You've taken off the headset. Why did you decide to do that?
I think the biggest thing is it's an opportunity to really talk about what I love, and that's football. And working with you, Tiff, is going to give a different perspective as well. I mean, you grew up around the game. You didn't get the opportunity to play it, but you grew up around it. You understand it. And that's probably the biggest thing and the neatest thing that I love about this is there is an opportunity to have this conversation. Secondly, you covered me back in the day for NFL Network. That was always a neat opportunity. Every time you would come, we'd spend an extra moment having a conversation. Yeah. And the conversation was beyond what was happening on the field. It was around the field. It was around the game. That's why I think this is a unique opportunity to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah, and I got to cover that team. Well, I covered you guys for 5 seasons, but then that, in particular, your team leading up to the Super Bowl, which we are coming to you just days ahead of Super Bowl 60, which happens to be the 40th anniversary of your Super Bowl championship with the Bears, and that tie-in of Coach talking about me growing up around the game. My dad, Don Blackmon, he was a linebacker on the Patriots side of things, which did not go well for them in that Super Bowl. And then this is also the 10th year anniversary of you leading the Panthers to the Super Bowl in Santa Clara. So many tie-ins. And I got to cover that team as we talked about. Just what memories do you have of maybe just even playing in a championship game, and then also having that uniqueness of being able to coach a team in a Super Bowl too?
Well, first playing in it, this is the 40th year anniversary. We had a celebration of that at the Bears opener this past season with Minnesota in Chicago on Monday night. They brought us in early. We got a chance, a group of guys to get around and commiserate about the championship, and that was really cool. I mean, I got to see guys I hadn't seen in 40 years. I mean, that's how crazy it was, because once that Super Bowl game was over, a lot of guys just went in different directions. Not everybody came back to play on the next year. So that was a really cool opportunity. It was very special. It's one of those things that in that game, in that moment, we were so confident, we were so comfortable in who we were. We knew we were going to win. It was just a matter of by how much. And not saying that in a boastful way, but
no, but you have to have that belief when you're going into a game of that magnitude.
Yeah, you do, but it is just there's so many things that carried over that really just kind of led us to believe that, and that was, I mean, everything from even though we lost to Miami, we turn around and shoot the Super Bowl shuffle. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, what does that tell you about who we are and who we were? That's what was really cool. But winning it was special. I mean, you people don't understand. It is very special, but the unfortunate part, and we'll have a conversation with Greg Olsen and talk about this, but there's also a point that people don't realize you may never go again. Oh. I mean, we were the youngest team at the time to ever win a Super Bowl, and we only went once. That's what was crazy about our situation, circumstances.
And then when you're on the losing end, it lingers. I talked to my dad about that too. And it's the highest of highs getting there, and then the lowest of lows when you don't win that game. And I know we'll get to our interview with Greg Olsen too, but just in maybe just feeling it from him and knowing the weight and for yourself too of not having won it.
The hardest part for me, obviously losing it, was always wondering what else could I have done? Should I have done this? Going into that game, I thought about a lot of things that I may have to do or may want to do. And now I sit there and think about, oh gosh, maybe I really should have done that. It's just crazy because you feel so responsible as the head coach. I really did. My biggest disappointment more than anything else was I felt like I let a lot of people down. Not just the football team, the players, the coaches, the ownership, but the city itself. I mean, Stephanie had something real special going in Charlotte with the community, and you feel really bad for the people because they got behind us, they rallied, they believed in us, and we thought we had everything we needed, and unfortunately it didn't fall that way. And one thing that did happen is before the season started, my older brother Mickey passed away of cancer, and we're going to training camp, and then we fly out there for the funeral, and then we come back and go right back into training camp. And we lose the Super Bowl. Stephanie hadn't gotten back yet. We were going to have our team party. Win or lose, you're having a team party. I'm in the hotel room by myself for the first time, and I break down. And it's choking me up right now because I never got to grieve Mickey. I mean, my older brother dies, and I'm right in the middle of football. And then the season comes to an unexpected halt. And I was in that room by myself, waiting for Stephanie to get back from the stadium because unfortunately she couldn't get on the bus with us. And that's when the moment came. And I really felt I got the opportunity to grieve Mickey. And but then I had to go back downstairs and put the face on that, hey guys, we're going to be okay. We're going to bounce back. We'll come back from this. I had to be the one to get up and step in front and do that because unfortunately the ownership didn't show up for the party. And I could understand the disappointment. But I got up and I talked to everybody, family, players, friends, workers, and it was tough. It really was. And to your dad's point, man, you live it every day whenever you think about it.
Yeah, it definitely stays with you. And you talked about the importance of just the staff and what it takes to get to a Super Bowl, not just the players on the field. And again, we're coming to you just days before Super Bowl 60 with our partners at Whistle Sports. Just with this week, and the 2 weeks leading up, what are the men and women on both of these teams with Seattle and New England? What are they going through right now to get this team ready for this game?
Well, what's really cool is that week of basically the bye week, everybody comes together because everybody understands what the goal is, and that's to win. That's to get this team prepared. So the work that we did, the work that our support staff did, the community rallying around the guys during that week was really tremendous. Then getting to the site and now having to try and make it as normal as possible. That's the one thing people don't understand either. Your job as the head coach is not to prepare not just prepare the football team, but it's also to handle all this, everything that's around it. I came away from Super Bowl 50 realizing more so than anything else that this is no longer just the game. This is the event leading up to the game. I mean, there is 6 days when you land, there are 6 days of events that have to be handled. And you try to limit the distraction for your players as much as you can.
And it's tough. It's not easy to do. Later in the show, we're going to highlight some of the stars of Super Bowl 60. We're also going to talk with tight end Greg Olsen, who we know is analyst at Fox Sports, and then, of course, played on your Super Bowl team. And Greg is just tremendous. So can't wait for you to hear our conversation with him.
This segment of No Headsets is presented by USAA. USAA takes care of the military community and is the only full-service financial institution that gives its members exclusive membership benefits.
As the world gets ready for the last football game of the season, Coach, who is someone for Seattle that you feel like really supports their team in a big way?
I'm not necessarily going to pick an individual, but I'm going to pick a position. Okay. If Seattle's defensive front, just a four-man pass rush, has success, that's where they're going to win the football game. I really do. Seattle, their four-man front, getting pressure on the quarterback, they impact the game the most.
I am going to start with defense because I really wanted to pick Ernest Jones and just the way that he's uplifted this team, had Sam Darnold's back. They've all talked about just the energy that he brings. But I'm going to shift to offense, and I got to go with Cooper Kupp. And though he's not, the leading receiver because you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, he comes up with just these crucial plays at the right time. And we saw that in the championship game. And, of course, what ended up being the game-winning touchdown, Sam Darnold being able to go to him. And his journey, right, kind of being, a little bit casted out of the Rams, and now having him being able to make an impact on this Seattle team that's going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, because there was, I'm going to read off some of the things that I wrote down, but there was Kupp's first catch of the game, and that was like 13 yards on a 3rd and 9, so that extended a really key drive. I'll even just jump to the fourth quarter because he had that critical 3rd down catch, and so he just continues to show up. So I really like him as someone that supports the team. When you flip it over to the New England side of things, who are you looking at?
Again, to me, it goes back to a unit, offensive line. If they can protect Drake Maye, give him time to get the ball downfield. He's going to dink and dunk it, which is traditionally what they do, that style of offense. But there's going to be a point where he's going to have to make some intermediate to deep throws, and they can give him time. They'll make the difference as far as who wins this football game.
So for me, I'm not really going to go with a player. I'm going to go with Coach Vrabel, because I feel like just the impact he's had on this team, he's supported them in such a huge way. And I think the weight of, I mean, you're coach, right? Like, what kind of weight would you be carrying knowing that you're now coaching the team that you played for? That seems like that would be really heavy, right? But it hasn't seemed to phase him.
It really hasn't. And I love your pick. But the truth is, when you think about it also, he's got to get these guys to believe they have a chance.
Yep.
I mean, everybody's talking about Seattle. I really do think that is something that can play into Wells, get his guys to believe that, hey, this is our opportunity. And just because we're not favored, it doesn't mean a thing.
And that's what his guys have talked about. He's just really instilled this belief in them that they can get this done. And that's what's really gotten them here. And I can tell you just from even watching him, I mean, you see the videos too, shaking hands with players after every game. I got to see that in person during his time, with the Titans. And it's not just even the players, it's how he treats the whole organization as a whole. You hear so many stories about that from people on the inside. And I think it's had a profound impact on this team and why they are where they are when no one thought that they would be there.
No, I don't disagree. I really don't. I think it's a great pick. We want to thank USAA for partnering with us here on No Headsets. See if you can join USAA by going to USAA.com.
Let's welcome in a man who's called the Super Bowl, played in the Super Bowl, a 3-time Pro Bowl tight end. Gosh, Greg, the accolades just go on and on for you, and you're an analyst at Fox Sports, an Emmy Award-winning analyst. Greg Olsen joining us here on the show. It's good to have you, Greg.
Yeah, it's good to be on. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, so first, the hard-hitting questions. With Coach Rivera, can you tell us your favorite memory of just being able to play for a coach like him?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one. We had 9 really good seasons. And, obviously as the results on the field fluctuate, as everyone in the NFL knows, you had great seasons, you have average seasons. We had a couple not so good ones, especially there just because we were kind of getting building early. I think when I think back to Ron, it really wasn't even tied to like the wins and the losses. Unfortunately, we probably had a lot of both, but more good times than bad. But, I think about hanging out in the O-line room on Fellowship Thursday and coach always coming in to have lunch with us and make sure his sandwich was ordered that he wants. And then we'd get on a winning streak and we'd all force ourselves to eat sandwiches we were tired of 5 weeks ago, but obviously for the sake of for the season, we all did our duty. But, just the conversations, the moments, getting to know his family, just get to know him as a man. I think if you ask anybody that's played for Ron, and whether that was when he was their position coach or whether he was their defensive coordinator, or obviously for us as our head coach, I think before people got into X's and O's, wins, losses, playoff games, I think people would just start with the man, the guy, the friend, the fun stories, the laughs, the jokes, allowing guys to get up in front of the team meeting room and poke fun at him, no different than they would poke fun at the rookie. And it just led to a culture where everyone felt comfortable and everyone felt like they belonged. And Ron deserves a ton of credit for just the environment that he built, taking over the Panthers when he did in 2011, bringing us to where he brought us. It was just, I could go on and on about the memories and the fun that we had. And obviously, before I even get into some of the great moments we had on the field.
Probably the greatest thing he talked about right there was culture. But also the neat thing was what we did on Fellowship Thursday. What it was an opportunity for these guys, Greg included, to be very honest. It starts in the offensive line room. Those guys got up and they really spoke their mind. They talked about the different things, and a couple of things they were talking directly to me. And it was funny because they knew they could say it, and I wasn't going to hold them against it. And that was what I think, Greg, probably the biggest thing that made it special was that nothing was personal.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And I think what was so cool about our relationship, especially as time went on, with Coach was, and again, if you asked Ryan Khalil and Luke and Stu and, Jordan Gross and Cam and Thomas, and we can go down and down, our best leaders and our best players, if you ask them, I would imagine they would say the same thing. The strength of our team, yes, we had a lot of good players. We had good coaches, but the strength of our team was our people. And obviously that started with Ron. That was a priority for Coach. But the guys that he put in positions of power, with the guys that he enabled to have a voice and to know that when we said things to Ron and we gave him our honest, open things, even if he didn't like it, even if he didn't agree with it, even if it didn't necessarily change anything, we always knew he respected us enough. And in return, obviously the respect we had for him as the ultimate leader of the group, that we could be honest, that we could be vulnerable. We could have fun times. We could have hard times. We could have easy conversations, hard conversations, but just know that it was all trying in the betterment of the team. It was all pulling in the same direction to try to improve the results, improve the experience of all the guys. So that can't happen without a head coach that's willing to sit in there and shoot the shit having lunch, and a coach that's willing to be in the weight room after practice and in there when we're working out. It only, if there's a disconnect where it feels like there's them and then there's the players and the teams that I've been around, that just doesn't work. And Ron was the epitome of creating that kind of connection and putting it all and tying it all together. And, he was like the center spoke of that wheel.
Greg, and even getting to cover y'all's team back then, that's one of the first things that we all noticed, even on like the reporter side of things, was how close this team was. And then the many different personalities. And then, of course, Coach Rivera being able to balance all of that out. How does that factor into a team then being able to make a Super Bowl run when everybody's allowed to be themselves?
Yeah, personalities were definitely not short. We were not short on personalities over those couple years. And and I'm sure Coach would attest, at times it's your greatest strength, and at times, if not corralled and if not harnessed in the right direction, and if you let it get too out of control, it could become a distraction and it could become a hindrance. But that's kind of the beauty of Ron and the staff that he put together is, we knew the guys that we could let kind of go be their own guy, and we kind of let them have a longer leash. And we also knew the guys that we needed to reel in and we needed to kind of put under our watch a little bit. But it's more art than science. Every team we had a different personality, had a different kind of feel. But overall, in the 9 years there that we were there with Coach, the one thing that was constant was the work, the accountability, the ability to do hard things. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of big personalities, but it never got in the way of the work. And, if you don't protect the work and you don't protect what really matters, a lot of those things can run haywire. And I think that was kind of the beauty of a team that was emotional. We were high energy. That was the nature of a lot of the guys, and a lot of our best players fit that mold, but it never came at the expense of the team. And, obviously that's a little bit of a dance. And I think, for the most part, did we get everything right? Probably not. Probably mostly, a lot of things we could have done better as players, but for the most part, I think we had a really good ability to harness those guys and make sure everybody was going in the right direction.
One of the things that I always talked about more than anything else was you guys taking ownership. At what point in 2015 did you feel we were going to be special? What made you feel that way? I mean, I have an idea, and I just want to compare it because people have asked me that question recently, especially around this time of year. When did you know? When did you really feel like, hey, we're going places?
Yeah, so specifically in 2015, I think in my mind at least, it was the Seattle game on the road, a team that we had really had a hard time getting past. They had kind of had our number, both regular season, some really tight games that we couldn't pull off there, especially in our first couple seasons, like 12 and 13. And then obviously they beat us in the playoffs just that previous year in the 14 divisional round. So I guess that would have been January of 15. But nonetheless, that was a team that was clearly at the top of the NFC. It was clearly a team that we were trying to chase and beat. And then, we go there, we fall behind, and, we end up coming back and arguably the hardest place to play in football, a big moment. We end up winning in pretty dramatic fashion. But I would say it even went back further, Coach. I would say the end of the 14 season, we're 3-8-1. It's not looking good for us. It's not looking good for, our jobs, your job, our future. And next thing you know, we sneak into the playoffs at 7-8-1. We win a home playoff game against the Cardinals. And then obviously we went to Seattle and came up short in the divisional round. But I think the way that season ended, finishing a season that people thought was lost, carried over into the 15 season. And next thing you know, it's Christmas and we're 14-0.
And I don't know if you remember this, but to me, the real telltale of the type of team we were going to be happened in training camp. we had that little disagreement between Cam and Josh. Oh yeah, that was special. I'm telling you, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I was trying not to laugh, but I wanted to yell at these guys. And I don't know if you remember what happened at that, Greg, but a group of them, Greg included, they came up to me, and I was going to call everybody up and and give one of my angry talks. And the next thing I know, they said, "Coach, we got this." Ryan Khalil stepped forward, and the team came together. I kind of stepped away. And whatever you guys said, because I walked away from that little huddle up you guys had, they talked to the players, they talked to each other, and nothing ever came of it at that point. But to me, that was one of the galvanizing moments. The second moment for me was my brother had passed just before training camp started, and we were going to the funeral, and I was going to be gone for two practices. And I gathered the 6 captains together. Greg was one of the guys, and I said to him, I said, "Look, I got to go to my brother's funeral. I'll be back after a couple of practices. You guys handle it. You guys keep everything going." I went, and when I came back, Danny Morrison, the club president, came to me and says, "You'd have never known you were gone." He said, "Your captain stepped up and led everything." So after I heard that, after I'd seen, how they handled the fight, I thought to myself, these guys have taken ownership. These guys have taken this to the next level, which I thought was really cool. And then to your point, when we did beat Seattle in Seattle, that was when it really felt like we were over the hump and we were going to get there.
Greg, just hearing Coach talk about the moment like that galvanized the team, was that it for you too, or do you have a different memory?
No, I remember that training camp fight very clearly. I think it was at the end of practice. It was a 2-minute. We used to end a lot of our training camp practices with like a live 2-minute drill, and because I think it was a 2-minute. Wasn't it the end of a 2-minute drill, Coach?
It was into the 2-minute drill.
So you got to remember, it's Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's 100 degrees. It's hot. We've been practicing we're well into our, 3rd hour. We're over the 2-hour mark, whatever that, 2:20, 2:15, depending on the day. So everyone's tired. You're exhausted. It's the last period, but you're also going to end with arguably the most competitive period because we're trying to score, and you got Luke and Thomas and Josh, they're trying to keep us from scoring, and it's competitive, and it's, everyone's talking and tired. And Cam at that point probably had more energy than the rest of us. We had done inside run, blitz, team, and he pretty much just talked trash the entire practice because nobody could hit him. So he probably had a lot more energy than the rest of us. I wasn't looking to fight anybody at that point at that point of practice. But I remember, the two of them, everyone's pulling them off each other, and they're going at it. And to Coach's point, it never carried over. No one even knew the next day that it happened. You couldn't tell by anybody's body language at lunch, in the cafeteria, at team meeting. And, I think it really, guys understood that we were going to be highly competitive. We were going to go fight. We were going to go battle. We were going to try to win at everything we did, but it was never going to come at the expense of the team and of the objective and of what we all had to try to accomplish together. And sometimes that's a very delicate balance to manage those two things. And as far as Coach being gone, hopefully Danny didn't say that out loud. We'll keep that internally. We all knew you were gone, Coach. We all knew you were gone.
I appreciate that.
Practices weren't that good. They weren't that good. But no, it was a special year. And I think when people ask, like, what was unique about that team, the simplest way is our best players were our best leaders. Our best players were our best practice players. Thomas Davis was practicing just as hard, and Luke Kuechly and Cam and guys were practicing just as hard in an August training camp practice as they were on a Wednesday in week 3, as they were on game day in the Super Bowl. Like it didn't matter the moment. And when you're a young guy and you're trying to develop that culture all the way up and down the roster, when you looked at your top players, your captains, your Pro Bowlers, your All Pros, and they were your best workers, they were your best leaders, they were your best guys in team meeting, it certainly has an effect on everybody else. And for those couple years there, we got that part right.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch, and it led you guys to that Super Bowl, and this is the 10-year anniversary of it, and it happened to also be in Santa Clara as well. What do you remember about that week and what it took to prepare?
Yeah, it's a week, 2 weeks that I've tried to forget. Every time I've pulled back into Santa Clara, whether it's, playing the 49ers, in subsequent years. I don't know if we actually played there after that Super Bowl, but
we did.
I think we did. And then certainly from there, I've called a few games there as a broadcaster. So I've been in the stadium a few times, and obviously brings back a lot of memories and, a lot of good memories leading up to the game, the practices at San Jose. And, the weight rooms and, trying to keep the routine together, driving out the Bojangles truck to the West Coast to do our fellowship Friday after practice in the hotel. Like, we really did so many cool moments throughout the year that we tried to carry over when we were out there. Obviously the game didn't go great. We picked a pretty bad game offensively to really struggle. Defense was awesome, but we just really for a team that led the league in scoring and, scored 34 against Seattle and then 47 or something in the NFC Championship, to score 10 was probably low on our list of opportunities. But, it's something that we're proud of. It's certainly a season that we're proud of. You can't help but look back and say, what could have been? How could we have done better? How could we have played better? But, certainly wasn't our day. But I thought we had a great week of prep. I thought our preparation all season long was really good. We just ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw and played a good team on a day they made the plays they had to. And obviously offensively, we struggled.
There was a moment, though, Greg, and you go back and you think about what was the most disappointing part for you?
I think the most disappointing part is not realizing in the moment that it was the only time you were going to get there. I think in the moment you're walking off the field, you're heartbroken. You understand the historical significance of not only just winning a Super Bowl, but doing it we would have been 18-1. An 18-win Super Bowl champ was a pretty significant feat that we knew. We knew what was out there. And, obviously losing sucks. Losing the way we lost sucks, I think, especially for the offensive guys to walk off and just realize that we just really didn't even give ourselves a chance. Turnovers, lack of execution, plays that we had made all season long, and we just didn't do it. And, at the moment you say, okay, we're going to do it again next year. We're going to be back. All these guys are relatively young, and and we only made the playoffs one more time. So it just, the finality of it, that you don't realize in the moment just how hard it is to get there and the assumption that you're going to get back. And it obviously didn't play out that way for us.
When you go back and you look at our experience, though, more so than anything else, probably to me the biggest moment, though, more so than anything else, Greg, is when we got back to Carolina. I mean, we had lost. We were, we were feeling pretty low. We pulled into the stadium, and you remember that crowd?
Yeah.
There had to be at least 15, 20,000 people had come out to greet us after we had lost. And if there was one moment more so that hit me, it was that. That at one point I felt like, man, we let a lot of people down. I felt like I let a lot of people down. But to get off that bus and have those people greet us the way they did, I thought that was pretty meaningful. I thought there was a lot of positives that we could take from it. And to that point, I started thinking to myself, okay, great. We have an opportunity. Hey, we'll be back. I mean, we're a young team. We had a young quarterback. Yep. But to your point, you just never really know. And that's the thing that was really hard for me, because 2016, now we got to get ready. We have the opener, and it had been the first time in 15, 20 years that the two Super Bowl teams opened the next season, because we opened up on the Thursday night game. It was the game that was harped about. Everybody was looking forward to this. The hard part for us, though, Greg, is we had to think about that from that point on. Once it was announced that was the game, every day, every time I got in front of the media, that was the question we had to deal with was, what's this game going to be about? This game about revenge? It's about getting them back. I mean, you lived with it constantly. And to me, that was one of the hardest things to really swallow for that whole offseason, was trying to get ready for it. And then unfortunately, lose it at the very end. We had a chance to win it.
Yeah, and I remember we're getting ready for that game, and during training camp, the coaches start bringing out cut-ups, and you start preparing for their fronts and their defender. Who are these guys? Who's the same? Who's new? Whatnot, and and then all of a sudden in that cut-up tape, there's like a play from the Super Bowl, and you're like, next, but like I don't even know if I ever watched the Super Bowl again. I could tell you every play because it's like singed into my brain. But I don't know if I ever actually sat down and watched the film. I don't even know if I watched the cut-ups in those of those clips, the final years we were getting ready during training camp for the opener. But yeah, I'm with you. It was certainly a weird experience, because we could have won that game by 100, and we don't get to go back and get the Super Bowl win. So like, it would have been nice to beat them, and certainly we tried and we had a shot. We missed a kick there at the end to win it, but it wouldn't have made up for losing 6 months or 7 months earlier or whatever it was. So that was certainly a very weird experience. I'm with you on that. Talking about coming back, though, that night, You talk about like drowning your sorrows. A bunch of the guys, our families were all on the West Coast still, coming back on the team charter, on the family charter. And, a group of us, Cam, Khalil, Luke, myself, DA, Thomas might have been there. It was a big group. We we drove down the street. We were like, we're going back to empty houses. We ended up going to like Ruru's, which was like a Mexican taco joint. They put us in the back. We're all in like our travel suits. We're all mad. We're all tired. And we just end up having probably too many margaritas and queso dip. I think I had like 50 pounds of queso dip that night, as I thought it was going to like make me feel better. And all it did was make us feel shit. But
I'll
never forget that dinner when we got back because there was a lot of sad dudes in that taco joint.
Well, I can tell you, my dad was on the Falcons staff when they lost that Super Bowl back in 97, 98, and we came home to like a loser parade. That's what I called it, but everyone turned out. It was nice to have the fan support, but it's still, that stays with you for sure. Greg, quickly, just one funny moment that you can recall off the top of your head with Coach so we can put him on blast here.
Oh man, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell those stories.
No,
I know. I was just thinking about a couple.
There's some stuff that I think stays pretty
in the trust circle.
Stays in the locker room. There's one that comes to mind, but the guys would kill me. It's not like a bad story about Coach. It was just like a funny tradition we had around Christmas, Coach, where a certain visitor would visit the team. I'll leave it at that. But a certain visitor would visit every year and had a pretty good routine, and everybody in the room was free game. And you sat there wondering who was going to be made fun of, what was the joke. So I would get it. Cam got a lot. Everyone from Steve Smith to Cam, me, Shockey in the early days. We were all pretty big targets, but Coach got his fair share of, I guess a lot of the things that guys wish they could have said all season long came out from this visitor that we had. And, it's always fun to be able to laugh at other people's,
Expense,
because we all took our turn. But when it's the head coach and he's sitting there laughing harder than everybody else, those were all fun moments.
That's awesome.
But I can't tell you what they said.
They were great moments.
But I can't tell you
what they really were great moments.
I'll have to ask him a little bit later.
Offline.
Then. Greg, we appreciate you joining us. This was the first episode of No Headset, so what better guest to have than you, Greg? We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me, Ron. You got it, guys. Appreciate you asking me, and appreciate everything you did for me, Coach. You're a big part of everything we did, everything I did, and appreciate you having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Gio. There's an amazing thing about who Greg Olsen was for us. First of all, it might have been the greatest trade Marty Herney had ever made as far as the Panthers were concerned. Getting him from Chicago, bringing him here to be our starting tight end. In the meantime, we also signed Jeremy Shockey. So we had a tremendous tandem of players for this young quarterback, and it was amazing to see how well those two worked together with this young quarterback in Cam Newton.
How much of an impact did that have on Cam's play when you've got two guys coming in like that?
Well, tremendous, because they were different personalities. Greg was very serious. He grew up with a dad who coached high school football. He played for his dad, so he had this mentality. So he was there helping Cam every opportunity he could to get things right. There were times when Cam would mess up the huddle call, Greg would correct it. And that's how well they worked together. In the meantime, Shockey, a little different, a little more flamboyant. And it was one of those things that, this is how crazy it was with Shockey. Shockey came, we were playing New Orleans in New Orleans. Shockey comes in. He's supposed to be relaying the play call. He calls the formation backwards. Okay? We run the play. We hit a seam, and it goes like 40 yards for a touchdown. Comes to the sideline, and the coaches asked him, what happened? And they said, well, that's what Shockey told us. He gave us the formation. He said, gave you the formation backwards. And Shockey comes over and says, hey, I think we just invented a new play.
There you go.
Yeah, but that's what guys like that mean, is that they have this ability to make things happen. Well, Greg did that, Shockey did that, but they worked so well with this young quarterback that it really, truly paid off for us.
It's always great when you get together with your former players and getting to go down memory lane, but now it's time for you to take us to school, Coach. It's time now to go inside the facility for a closer look at Super Bowl 60, and we start with the New England Patriots. And you look at Coach Mike Vrabel, going back to coach the team that he played for, won Super Bowls with, and now here he is leading them to a Super Bowl in his first year with quarterback Drake Maye. Just this turnaround that's gone into it for them, complete 180 as a new head coach to your old team. What went into this for him? What do you attribute to them being able to flip this script?
Well, I think the biggest thing is because he played for the Patriots. He was part of those championship teams, started his coaching career there. I think what it really signifies to the team is, hey, my perspective, trust my perspective. I've been there, I understand what it takes. Do it our way, do it the Patriot way. Plus, he's built this team in his personality. He's a tough physical player. That's what he's gotten from his guys is tough physical play. You know, they're a team that will run the football. They're a team that will get after people physically on defense. So you have that mentality, and it's been implanted onto this team by him. One of the best things going, you mentioned it, is the play of Drake Maye. He's a guy that now all of a sudden has burst onto the field compared to the other guys that came before him. You know, before Caleb, before Jaden, before Bo. I mean, now there's Drake Maye, and he's the first one of that group to get to the Super Bowl. That's a pretty impressive thing.
Let's talk about Seattle. And so you're very familiar with Leslie Frazier. Mm-hmm. You're a former teammate. So he's an assistant head coach on their staff with Mike McDonald. And something you talked about was you, during your time with the Panthers when you got there, you wanted to have kind of a mentor.
Yes.
What has Leslie Frazier done for Mike McDonald in that way?
Well, you know, I know this, and because I talk to Leslie quite frequently about, you know, things, and we always throw ideas off of each other. And one of the things was not just for Coach McDonald being a mentor, somebody that coach could ask questions specifically about because of his experience, he can give them good answers, but he also got to work with the younger coaches, you know, young offensive coordinator, young defensive coordinator, defensive coaches that say, hey, how does this look like, or what should this look like? So Leslie can be a valuable resource for that team. My hat's off to Coach McDonald because he's come in and he's instilled a culture, I think, that really is very resilient, and it is built about being a team that does things the right way. They play fast. They play smart. You know, this is a team, I think, that when you look at them, it does reflect, you know, one of these younger guys that has different philosophy, different idea about how to play the game. But he's also a very well-schooled coach. When you go back and look at where he came from, you know, having been part of Baltimore's staff under Coach Harbaugh, this is a guy that's taken what he's learned from a guy like John Harbaugh, and now he's implemented it in Seattle.
Mentorship. You told me a really cool story about who your mentor
Yes.
was. Share that with us. What did that do for you?
It did a lot. It really did. You know, my first 2 years at Carolina, I had this crazy, you know, record of being 3-13 in games decided by 7 points or less. And that just showed us how close we had come as a football team. And so at the end of the year, I sat down with our owner after my second season in 2012 at Carolina, and we went through the whole thing. We talked about things that needed to be done, things that need to happen, how I felt we can improve things. And as we're finishing the conversation, I looked at him. I said, look, Mr. Richardson, I said, I do think one thing that I could do that could really help me, I need to improve as well. I need to learn a few things. Is I need to find a mentor. I need somebody that I can sit there and talk to and get ideas from. And I said, I'd like to talk to John Madden, if that's okay. Well, he looks at me, he kind of chuckles a little bit, reaches inside his coat pocket, pulls out this index card, and he slides it over to me, and he says, take a look. I flip it over. John Madden. It was his phone number. He said, I talked to Coach. He's waiting for your call. So I call Coach Madden, and you know, we start talking, and it was great. And he said, hey, I'd love to have you come out. And I said, well, I'd be happy to. And you know, he had his home office was here in Pleasanton, California. So I said, Coach, I'm going to come out next week, and we'll sit down. So he said, great, come on out. And he said, oh, by the way, I understand you have this 3-13 record in games decided by a touchdown. And he said, Ron, why don't you go back and look at them, see what you could have done? Well, being a Berkeley grad, my first thing is, I got to write a report. So I went back, I looked at those games, and I write a report. I mean, it's about 20 pages and I went through each game, and I talked about situations, circumstances in those games, and I talked about what my options could have been. A great example is we played Buffalo at one point, and we were up by 3, and we're driving, it's 4th down, and I decide to kick the field goal. Now, it was a long 1.5 yards for the first down, but if we had got it, we could have killed the clock. If we kicked the field goal, we'd go up by 6, which we did. But then they drive down, score, kick the extra point to beat us by 1. Those are the types of decisions I was making. And so I'm talking about those types of decisions. And I said to Coach, I said, well, you know, I went by the book. He looked at me and said, what book? I said, well, I kicked the field goal and we went up by 6. We punted, got them back in the corner. But in each of those instances, they were able to move the ball, get it in position, and score to win. And I said, well, but it made me realize all of a sudden I was playing it safe. I was doing things basically safe. And I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to protect the win. And it made me realize at that point I needed to take those chances, to take that risk. And now everybody knows what my nickname is.
Yeah, Riverboat Ron. So yeah, roll the dice, everybody. But just hearing that experience and knowing that Leslie Frazier and the impact that just having that mentor could have on a team, it is incredible. And you don't get to the Super Bowl obviously without maybe having that someone to lean on and then taking risks as well. And you can relate to these teams kind of on both sides of things if you bring it back to the Patriots, because there's a great coaching story here with Terrell Williams, who's been battling cancer, yes, this season. The Patriots have talked about his journey, and certainly everybody's thinking of him and rooting for him. And there was some news that he will be with this team, helping them to prepare. Like he's been with them pretty much all season. I know he's stayed, in the mix. And so Stephon Diggs, again, talking about, hey, it means the world to us to have like another road warrior going with us to battle for this game. You obviously went through cancer while you were coaching. Just what does the game do for you when you're going through something like that, and not only elevating your spirits, but in elevating the team?
I think, whenever there's somebody making a comeback or somebody going through a situation like that, there's always that story. And when you can be a positive influence on that, I think that's a pretty cool story. And players do find some sort of inspiration. And sometimes in a game like this, a little bit can mean a lot. It really can. And so I think this is could be one of those true big-time stories. But at the same time, it's also going to be a story, no matter how you look at it, of a guy's battle. And that, I think, is what the players are going to take from this. I really do. This is kind of a neat thing. So to me, as you look at this game, one of the X factors really is Drake Maye's ability to scramble and create downfield. And by that, I mean he's scrambling, he breaks the pocket, his eyes are downfield, looking for the opportunity to throw the ball. And then if he has to tuck it and run, he will. He's got that much athletic ability. The thing that's crazy about it is he's their third leading rusher, and they don't necessarily have designed run plays for him as much as what they do is they rely on his ability to be creative once he breaks the pocket. And the idea behind this, as we look at this, is for the most part, is what he sees downfield. He gets his basic read. Let's say they're showing cover 2, and as the routes unfold, let's say that his options are taken away. So then what he'll do for the most part is he'll break the pocket based on where he needs to go. So let's say he breaks towards his right side. Well, these receivers for the most part are now going to look for opportunities to do one of two things, okay? Either come back to him or start going vertical. So what you may get is an opportunity where this receiver sees it and he continues vertical. Well, as he's doing that, his eyes are downfield looking. Okay, this guy may have to scramble and work to a hole, try to find an open area, and then this guy will break across. Okay, again, understanding that they've got to find an open area for Drake to get the ball to them. So then what will happen is these guys will continue to work and try to get an opportunity to get into his vision. Once they get into his vision and they're in an open spot, he'll deliver the ball. If not, if he clears it, now he'll take off and run. I think this is a net for them, for New England. Because again, one of the things that these guys have relied on has been this 4-man pass rush. But if you can protect this quarterback long enough so he can make plays downfield, it's a very dangerous thing. Why? Because eventually he's going to wear these guys down. But the negative portion to it, though, is, again, if they can keep him contained, not allow him to use his ability to break the pocket, be creative, and take advantage of those opportunities downfield, it's a big thing. The next thing also, though, is, Seattle does play some man coverage, try to take away those quick throws and force the quarterback to hold it. But if he breaks the pocket and they're in man coverage, now he has an opportunity to run the ball and make big plays. So again, a lot of things playing into factor is, if he's breaking the pocket, you can't play as much man coverage as you want to play. That's why the biggest thing that he has going for him is his ability to keep his eyes downfield, have a great feel for spatial awareness, and then look for the opportunity to make a decision. Throw it or run it.
It's time now for taking the lead, and let's talk about analytics, Coach, because your nickname, Riverboat Ron, we talked about your mentor and John Madden. How is that going to factor into what we're going to see in the Super Bowl?
We've seen it so many times this past season, seasons before. We've seen guys make decisions on when to take the points and when not.
That everybody talks about on the next day after on Monday morning.
Absolutely. But, what's happened with analytics, I think it's kind of given the coaches a little bit of a crutch, because if you stick to it by the analytics, it's in the numbers. And so you could always say, well, I just using the numbers. It's like, Coach Payton. Sean Payton made a very difficult decision. They're up 7-0. They have a chance. It's 4th down. They're in their own in the red zone. They got a chance to score a touchdown or kick the field goal, and he went for the touchdown. Now he's talked about how now in retrospect and hindsight, he should have taken the points. And there is a group of us, you talk about it and said, well, I'm a little more conservative than that, believe it or not, even though people sit there and call me Riverboat Ron. I might have kicked it. I probably would have kicked it. But again, if Sean goes for it and gets it, just like he did the onside kick against Indianapolis,
it's the greatest thing ever, right?
It was one of the greatest decisions because it worked. And if he had gone up 14-0, man, it changes the whole mentality of his team. We can do this with this quarterback, this young Stidham who's come in and had to start the championship game. We can win this. I think that's one of the risks that he took, and I think it was, and it's something that, again, he has to make that decision. Dan Campbell did it against the 49ers. Again, he could have kicked the field goal, gone up by 3 scores. And again, and not that I have all the answers, but I would have kicked it.
You don't?
No, I don't. Trust me, I don't. I wish I did. If I did, I might still be coaching. Shoot.
But that's why you're in the mix.
Yeah. But the truth is, Dan did what he's always done, and that was he was going for it. I mean, 3 touchdowns. I mean, have a 3 touchdown lead. That's a heck of a thing to overcome. So I understand why guys do things, but the analytics supports them. And so really people don't get crushed like they used to when you make decisions, because there's numbers now backing up what you've done. And I think that's where you have to be careful, though, because sometimes there's a flow to the game. Sometimes there's the personal element to the game. You don't know if the referee's going to make a bad call. You don't know if your right guard, something's going on with his shoulder that he's not telling anybody about. There's these little factors that we can't put into numbers. And those sometimes have an impact. Weather has an impact. Again, Sean Payton, to that point, who knew the weather was going to get as bad as it did in the second half? There might have been a prediction, but you just don't know for sure.
So you have to decide whether or not you really want to roll the dice. And also we've seen situations too where maybe the team itself is like, no, we want to go for it. It's 4th and 1, let's go. And I know there was, you had some moments like that.
Oh, I did. And it's funny because I'll never forget one of the very first times I did it. Okay, we were playing the Giants. It was 2013 playing the Giants. And in the first series, I went for it twice on 4th downs. Both times we converted. The last time, it was 4th and goal to go. And we went for it. We punched it in. Cam came off the field with the ball, walked up to me and said, "Thanks for trusting me. I will never let you down." And I mean, with conviction, the way he said it, that's why 4th down looked so promising to me. And for the most part, he didn't. I mean, he was like 97%. I mean, you sit there and look at that, and that says, dang, we're going for it.
That's why they call him Superman, right?
Yes.
Maybe we'll get some of those moments in this Super Bowl with Seattle and the Patriots. Do you have a prediction, Coach, in this matchup?
Well, I'm going with team speed and not dissing or anything on New England. But right now, with how fast it looks like Seattle plays. I mean, they're all over the place defensively. They've got explosive players on the offensive side. And the one thing that's been very impressive is they're the 4th leading pressure team in terms of putting pressure on the quarterback. And they do that primarily with a 4-man rush. They're one of the lowest percentages of blitzing teams in the league. And think about that. You're getting pressure with just a 4-man rush. That means you're dropping with a full complement of guys, with 7 guys back there covering the field. Whether you're playing zone or man, you've got people playing the pass. And that, I think, is something that's going to be real interesting to see how Maye handles that.
Because it's not been the best for the Patriots in protecting the quarterback so far this season with the amount of times that he's been sacked. Do you think Seattle turns up the heat a bit in this game? It's
going to be interesting because I do think they're going to turn up the heat. They've got tremendous pass rushers. They've got guys that are, that 8, 9, 10, there's probably I think, at least 20 guys that have had a sack this year on that defense. And the thing that's real interesting is they've done it with mostly a 4-man rush, but when they're blitzing their nickels, they're blitzing their safeties, those guys have gotten to the quarterbacks as well. So that's what's impressive about who they are as a defense. So to me, I see them early on potentially just sticking with the 4-man rush to see if they can get to the quarterback. But if they can't, I think they'll go to the blitz, to the pressure very early.
So you're going with Seattle
Yes.
to win this Super Bowl.
Yes, if I had to give you a number, I don't think it's going to be overly high scoring. I could see 27 scored by Seattle, and I could see somewhere around 21 scored by New England. 27-21.
27. Oh, you okay? 27-21. All right, Riverboat. We'll see how that plays out. It's been great getting to do this with you. This is our first episode of No Headsets, and we got to walk down memory lane with Greg Olsen and learn a lot about you and just the mentor that you had in John Madden. It kind of takes me back to being back in 2015 and getting to start at NFL Network and then getting to cover your team. So it's fun.
It is fun. It was a lot of fun, Tiff. So thanks.
All right. Well, we got an episode 2 that we're going to have coming up soon. So you're going to stay tuned for that. And yeah, we're all going to be glued to the Super Bowl to see if that prediction comes true.